Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Lori, and today I wanted to do a video on the difference between the higher self voice and the ego. And the reason I wanted to do this video today is because one of the most popular questions I get from my clients after sessions is, how do I know if it's my higher self and not my ego? And how do I know that what I'm hearing isn't just me making it up? That it's not really real, or it's not true. It's just kind of a voice in my head. And so I realize that more and more of us are waking up to our higher selves, and more and more of us are listening to the higher selves, but we don't know that it's our higher selves we're listening to. So this video is going to explain how to start to differentiate between the higher self and the ego. First of all, one of the things I want to say is I was in a session yesterday with a client, and when I'm in these sessions inside Mount Shasta in Telos or any other stargate that we're taken into, we almost always meet with really beautiful star beings. And a star being, it was the Avian star family that came in. And they were saying that not all of humanity, but a lot of humanity has shifted into a little bit higher timeline. Not higher in terms of like better, but a different timeline. Shifted into a higher state of consciousness. And in this higher state of consciousness, in this new timeline, our higher selves is now just moving through us. So prior to this shifting into this new consciousness, we would have to ask for our higher selves to come in. We would have to actively kind of engage with the higher self. We would have to sit in meditation and bring in the higher self, spending a lot of time sort of embodying the higher self. And this past year, in a very unconscious way, humanity has been embodying the higher self without us even knowing it. That is one of the things that we've been doing in Ascension. Is as more light's coming in, the higher self is starting to move through us more. It's starting to funnel, so to speak, through us. So there's 7 energy centers inside the physical body, 8 energy centers outside the physical body that allow for this kind of channeling of light to come through. You can imagine it like literally like a tube or a channel. And that's how the higher self and I am presence moves energetically into us. And it's this constant movement. It's this constant flow. It's not like it's energy just moving straight in and then it stays. It's this constant flow of energy moving up and moving down, moving up and moving down. And so what's happened as we shifted, for many of us, not all of us, but for many of us, what we've shifted now, and there is just this flow. The higher self is just talking to us. We're just embodying the higher self. It's just starting to happen. It just, as everything in Ascension does, it just happens. We didn't have to necessarily do anything, and it's just happening now. It's another aspect of our evolution, which I love. This is one of the things I love about Ascension, is that we feel like there's so many things that we have to do in order to move ourselves along in the Ascension process. And what we're learning, or at least what I'm learning, and what I'm sharing, is that we are becoming aware of how we're shifting. So we're becoming aware of, oh, I need to get grounded more. Oh, I need to bring in my higher self. Oh, I need to start to embody my higher self, right? So on an intuitive level, we're understanding how we're shifting. And then the human brain thinks it needs to figure out how to do it. So we got to watch these videos that assist us and do these meditations that assist us and do these step-by-step processes and all this stuff. And that's all beautiful, but we actually don't need to do a darn thing. Ascension is doing it for us. The light is doing it for us. So for many of you watching this video right now, I invite you to kind of surrender to this new idea that the higher self is already in. that there's no need to sort of open crown and invite higher self in anymore, which is what I was doing all the time. It's already flowing. It's just moving now. And so now it's a matter of, how do I hear the higher self, and how do I know it's not my ego? Okay. So here's how I differentiate. These are all aspects of myself. The higher self is an aspect of me. The ego is an aspect of me. And I'm only going to talk about those two things. I'm not going to talk about all the other beings that we can start to bring in and feel. So these are two aspects of me, and they are inside of me, and I feel them in my mind. So when I communicate with them, when I hear them, it sounds like my own voice speaking to me. But here's the difference. Here's higher self. Higher self is, actually, let me do ego first. Ego is right or wrong, good or bad. Ego is duality. Good or bad, positive, negative. That's something you should do. You shouldn't do that. That's the right thing to do. That's the wrong thing to do. That's a negative thing. That's a positive thing. The ego is going to protect you. The ego is your protector. It's going to shield you from the outside world. So it's going to tell you, ooh, you shouldn't do that. That's too scary. The ego is going to say, ooh, you're not quite ready to do that yet. Don't do that yet. The ego is going to say, you don't know how to do that. The ego is going to say, if you try to do that, you're not going to have enough money. The ego is going to say, if you do that step, you're going to be all alone. So the ego is your guide, your protector, standing in front of you, kind of like, I'll let you know what's right and what's wrong. I'll let you know which direction to go to. I know best, right? I've been protecting you for so long that I'm going to prepare you for the future. I'm going to make sure that you don't mess up. I'm going to make sure that you have enough money before you move in that direction. I'm going to make sure that you're surrounded by people so you're not alone. The ego's been doing that your whole life. So the ego is a very natural, comfortable voice we hear all the time. It's the voice that is full of fear. It's the voice that's full of doubt. It's the voice that's full of insecurity. It's the voice that wants you to look good in front of people. It's the voice that doesn't quite think you're ready. That kind of voice. Okay. Higher self is this voice. Higher self is very neutral. The higher self is very direct, and it has very little to say when it actually says something. So the higher self will say something like this. You need to start to write a book. You need to start a podcast. You need to go to that grocery store and purchase chlorophyll. You need to go to that bookstore and purchase this book. You need to open up your email right now and read an email. You don't know what email. You need to walk to that store over there and look at the bulletin board. Okay. All these things that the higher self says never make sense. Okay. The ego makes sense. The ego you understand. The ego makes you feel safe. The ego makes you feel comfortable. The higher self is asking you to move into a space of surrender and not having any control or any expectation. The higher self voice is a neutral space where there is no right or wrong. Is there a right or wrong to walking to the grocery store and getting chlorophyll? No. Is there a negative or positive to that? No. It's just a statement that the higher self says. It's truth, and then you follow it. And a lot of times it doesn't make any sense. Like, you're not quite sure, why am I going to go get chlorophyll? Who knows? Okay. Why am I going to walk to the bookstore and look at the bulletin board? Who knows, but go and do it. And then when you're in front of the bulletin board, you're going to hear that voice that says, start looking around. Look at all the different things that are on the bulletin board. And then you're going to hear something that says right there, what does that feel like to you? And you're going to say, call that person. Right? Or something, or your voice, higher self is going to tell you as you're cooking dinner or something, go watch that YouTube that so-and-so did. Go listen to that YouTube again. Right? Or your higher self is going to say, hey, you need to go and sit down and start to do your website again. It's very direct, and there's not a lot of confusion. It's not a back and forth conversation that you have with the higher self. The higher self speaks, and it comes through, maybe a sentence or two, and that's it. The ego comes in, and you start to debate with the ego. So for instance, let's just say the higher self says to you, hey, you should, the higher self will say, start working on your website. And the ego is going to say, you don't have time. You don't even know how to do it. You actually should go do something else instead. You're going to fail anyways. You don't even know how to do it. You don't even know what to do. It's too complicated. It's too challenging. You'll do it tomorrow. Okay, that's one. Those are two different things. The higher self might say to you, why don't you go and film yourself speaking light language? Okay, you need to speak light language to a video and post it. Higher self, the ego is going to say, absolutely not. That's a bad idea. Don't listen to that. That's actually not what you're supposed to do. You're going to look like an idiot. You're going to look like a fool. You don't even know how to do that. And then you settle down and you don't do it, right? Higher self's going to say, you need to, a big one is like, okay, you need to quit your job by this time, right? Maybe the higher self doesn't necessarily say a date, but the higher self is going to let you know, hey, it's time to let go of your job. And the ego is going to say, that's crazy. That's just fantasy. You're just imagining that. That's just something you want to do, but you're never going to be able to do it. So just relax. Just settle in. Just accept where you are. Just accept and surrender to where you are, right? And then the ego's going to, the higher self's going to say, a couple months later, you need to quit, or you're going to quit your job. And again, the ego says, you're not ready. You don't even know what to do. You don't even know how to do it, And so that's how the higher self and the ego play out. Now, what does it sound like in terms of like a voice? It's the same voice, except that the higher self is just subtle. The higher self is a very subtle voice. The ego is loud. The ego will persist and persist and persist. The ego will not stop. All right? The higher self just tells you what's next. Hey, you're going to be getting on the road and traveling for a week. Hey, we want you to go to Mount Shasta on a vacation, right? Or, it's those kinds of things. And a lot of times the higher self is very subtle. It's a very subtle sort of get in your car and go to, the bookstore and go sit in the bookstore. And you don't know what that's going to do. You don't know what's going to come from that. A lot of times these are subtle things that nothing really comes from it. But then there's a lot of other times where the higher self nudges you to do things that are pretty big, like start a podcast or write your book or move to a different state, right? Or quit your job. Or that voice that says it's time for you to leave your partner, right? It's time for you to leave your partner. That's all the higher self will say. And so it's that nudging voice of it's time to leave your partner. And then you settle into that information. Okay, that's all the higher self will say. The higher self isn't going to tell you how or when or any of that, right? The first kind of thing is it's time to leave your partner. And then your ego is going to say, holy shit, when am I going to do that? How am I supposed to do that? There's absolutely no way. And so you start negotiating. The higher self and the ego can start to negotiate. It's like, well, when am I supposed to do that? The higher self is just going to say, it's time to leave your partner. And then you'll know when to leave your partner. Higher self will say, you'll know when to leave your partner, right? And so then you just start to open up to this idea. Oh, I'm going to leave my partner. Let me sit with that for a minute. Let me open to that idea. It's the same thing with leaving a job, right? You're going to leave your job. What do you mean I'm going to leave my job? You're going to leave your job. And then you just settle into that, right? It's not like you have to take action right away. There are certain things where you will take action right away, like go to that grocery store and pick up chlorophyll, right? Or go watch that YouTube channel and then you do it. But then there's bigger things where it's like, I got to let this sink in for a moment. Let me sit with this. And then the way the higher self works is that you'll hear that voice again of like, you got to leave your partner. And then your higher self will say something like, you're safe. Higher self will say, you're going to be okay. Higher self will say, I've got you. And then the ego is going to come in and say, you can't. You're not ready. You're going to be all alone. You'll never find somebody again. Okay? The reason it's extremely important to start to become acutely aware of these two separate voices is because as we ascend and as we shift into higher states of consciousness, we are being asked to listen over and over again to the higher self, and to allow the higher self to guide us. This is extremely important when we start to figure out what our purpose work is. Your purpose work is guided by your higher self. I mean, everything in your life is guided by your higher self. And the more you can allow your higher self to guide you, the more you are in flow. The more you just allow, the more you realize that you don't have to do very much, that you can just trust that you're taken care of. And also you'll find that you're much more in a present moment state. You're not trying to figure things out. You're not trying to solve the problems. You trust that your higher self will tell you what's next. And then you will move in that direction. And as you start moving in that direction, the higher self will tell you the next step. So it's a matter of becoming aware of that higher self voice, which is a neutral voice. Okay? And then becoming aware of that really loud ego that's the guard. She's guarding you, or he's guarding you, protecting you, keeping you safe. And then you have to have the courage. You have to have the courage to start to trust. So what a lot of clients say is, how do I know that I'm not making that up? There's no such thing as making something up. You're not going to make anything up in your head. I mean, unless you sit and decide that you want to make up a scenario that's going to be, that's going to stop you from doing that, right? Or you're going to create a scenario in your head, then you're being conscious of it. You're consciously creating a scenario, right? So you're sitting and you're consciously creating something, and you're making something up in your head, but you're conscious of it, right? When you hear a voice, you're not making that up. That's your higher self, or that's your ego. Or it could be other beings speaking to you, but you're not making it up. So you've got to start to understand we've shifted into a different space in time, a different timeline, a different consciousness, a different reality, so to speak. And so the higher self is now just moving through. And now people are hearing that voice and they're thinking that it's in their heads, they're making it up. It's the higher self speaking to you. That's your higher self. You're just not used to it. So you think you're making it up in your head. You're like, what the hell is this voice telling me to do this? I've never heard this before. What is this? This can't be real. And you ignore it. I'm just making this up. Well, this is part of ascension. This is part of waking up to our multidimensionality. This is part of working with the higher self. This is part of being present, staying in the present moment and flowing. This is part of what it means to surrender. This is what it means to trust. This is what it means to let go. All these words, these very spiritual words that we use all the time. Well, this is it. This is it. This is how we do it. And so becoming aware of the fact that it's going to sound like your own voice, and you can't force it. So it's not like you can sit there and be like, okay, higher self, I want to hear you. I mean, I could do it right now and I could speak with my higher self because I've been doing it for a while and I'm used to it. So I could hear my higher self come in and say, I'm right here, I hear you, right? I can listen to that voice. And then I can pull in my ego and I can let my ego come in. And I can feel into what my ego is saying. But that's because I've been doing it for a while. So I've been consciously doing this for a while because I know that in order for me to move through my purpose work, in order for me to continue to do the work I'm here to do, in order for me to serve every single person I'm here to serve, I have to get out of the way. And the only way to get out of the way is to get the ego out of the way and to listen to my higher self and let that part of me move me. Because my higher self has the highest and best good for me always. No matter what it says, it's always for my highest and best good. Always, no matter what. Even when I don't understand it, which is most of the time, I don't know what the hell, why would it tell me to do this, but I do it. Even when I'm fearful, fear is always going to be around. Fear doesn't go away, right? Fear is just always there. It's just kind of part of our process of shifting. Every step that we take that's a bigger leap, there's going to be a little fear there. But fear is nothing to be afraid of. It's just part of being human. It's just part of our human conditioning. So my higher self is what I lean on. My higher self is what I trust. My higher self is is my go-to. And the more I go to it, the more I flow, the more I trust, the more I realize I don't have to do a darn thing. It's already being done for me. So know that when you're starting to hear these voices come in, just start to ask yourself, is this from a place of doubt, lack, negative, positive, good, bad? Is there a judgment in this voice? Is this voice telling me what's good and what's bad? Is this voice telling me what I should or shouldn't do? Is this voice trying to protect me? So pay attention. It's very easy to hear. It's very easy to hear once you become conscious. Or is this voice just very neutral, telling me what's next? Telling me what's next in a very gentle, loving way. The higher self is the most loving, gentle part of you. It's the aspect of you that is connected to the I am presence, which is connected to source. It's the part of you that you are supposed to eventually start living through. It's the part of you that has a direct connection to the light of who you are, the light of who everyone else is. It's also the part of you that's connected straight to that light within that heart center. So it just sort of has this beautiful alignment that just starts to happen. And that intuitive voice starts to feel more and more of that higher self voice. So the intuitiveness is that feeling aspect of you. Oh, this feels right. This feels good. This feels like a yes. This feels like a no, that kind of thing. That's the intuitiveness. But the higher self there is no right or wrong. The higher self is, you're going to do this. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. You're going to go here. And with your purpose work, it's extremely important because your purpose work is going to unfold in very odd, bizarre, weird ways. And your family of light and your higher self are going to open up doors and open up avenues that don't make sense. And so the only way to really start to walk through and walk into your purpose work is to really start to trust what you're hearing, to trust the signposts that they're showing you to walk through, to walk into, to move towards. It's extremely important. So remember, you're not making any of it up. And start to get real clear on, is this ego or is this higher self? And know that your higher self's in you. Higher self is moving. Every single one of you watching this, I guarantee you, the higher self is just flowing now. If you're attracted to this video and you're watching it, the higher self is just moving. Okay, there's nothing you need to do any longer to bring in and embody the higher self. What you now need to do is listen and start to follow. Listen and start to follow. That's the next step. It's like we're always just moving to that next level of awakening, that next level of ascension. It's like, great, now we have the higher self inside of us, right? Now we have this higher self moving. Thank you, light. Thank you, ascension. Thank you, all of this movement, evolution. Oh, look, I didn't really have to do anything, And now, listening. Okay, let's listen, And eventually we'll move out of that space and we'll move into whatever's after that, which I don't know because I'm not there yet, right? Where I am at is listening to my higher self guide my entire journey, guide my entire day. Literally, my higher self guides every day, every move. My higher self guides my entire process. From the moment I wake up until the moment I go to bed, I'm being led by my higher self. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So I hope this was useful. If there's any questions that come up, comment down below, and I will do my best to come back into this video and to answer all your questions. I know there's always questions of, well, how do you know, how do I hear the voice? Just it's there. Just quiet yourself, Quiet. It's so subtle in the beginning. The best thing you can do is not try to force it to come in. It's already there, Just trust. It's so subtle in the beginning. It's a very subtle voice. And a lot of times we don't listen to it because we don't think that that's the higher self. So just play with whatever voice you hear. It's not imagination. It's your higher self. So play with it and listen to what it says. It's there. I'm telling you. It's quiet in the beginning. And the more you start to pay attention to it, and the more you start to listen to it and start to take action, take the action that it's asking you to take, you'll be like, oh, wow. Okay, this is what it means. A lot of times the higher self is going to tell you to do things that don't have any big, huge outcome. You know, the higher self told me to come up to Castle Lake today and to do the videos. There's no outcome in that other than this is where my higher self wanted me to be to do these videos, right? My higher self said today, what was the other thing my higher self said? My higher self told me not to eat a certain thing. Have this instead. Okay. No huge outcome, right? But I heard the voice and I followed, right? You might be in the line about to order something, you know, whether it's a piece of food or clothing or a book or something, and all of a sudden you're going to hear this voice that says, don't buy it. That's higher self. Put it back. Don't do it, right? Or it's going to say, you know what? Go get that other book that you were debating on. That's the book you need. Okay, go back. You don't think. You just do. You don't think. You just do. You know, you'll be in line about to order food, and your higher self is going to say you should really order that green smoothie. But I don't want the green smoothie. It's too expensive. I can't afford it. You need to order the green smoothie, right? Okay, I'm ordering the green smoothie. You just start getting into this space of like, I hear this voice. I'm going to listen. A lot of you hear the voice but ignore it. You just think it's your imagination speaking to you. It's higher self. Start to listen. Always. It's every day. It's just constantly moving you. It's constantly moving you. Hey, go take a bath tonight. Higher self. Hey, go make yourself some tea and go sit by yourself for 10 minutes. Higher self. Hey, go do that meditation that you love to do. Higher self. So it can be as simple as that and as huge as you're going to move. What? You're going to move. That's higher self. So anyways, comment down below with any questions. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. I'm doing videos at least once every week, trying to get as much information out as possible to you guys that's coming into me. Like this video if you liked it. Share it if you think that there's other people that would enjoy it. And thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being on the planet right now and participating in this huge, magical, amazing shift that we're all moving through. I love you all. Thank you so much. Bye.